Hello there, welcome to our Friday demo. I hope you had a great week, and I'm excited to do a pouring demo here at the end of the day. We're going to stick with the spinner, and we're going to be doing a relatively simple pour, and we're going to spice it up a little bit with our spinner. So I'm using the same color palette that I used in our members only demo on Wednesday. I really like that color palette, so we're going to see what else we can do with it. So I hope you are ready for some spinning, and welcome everyone. Hey, Lily is here, and Cinda and Pat, fantastic. So let's just dive right in. I'm gonna flip the camera and show you the color palette, and then we will get on to our demo. So here we go. So here is my spinner. I'm doing a 16 by 20, and this is the same color palette that I worked with on Wednesday, like I just mentioned. And I'll just walk you through the colors, then we'll talk about the technique we're going to be doing, and then we'll get into doing the technique. So we've got a dioxazine purple, we've got some gold, metallic blue, Artist Loft Liquitex Basics. I've got a little bit of Payne's Gray here, a whole bunch of white. This is going to be my base coat. And I have got this custom mixed kind of an aqua, kind of an oceany turquoise, and it's a mixture of turquoise, this happens to be Artist Loft, and then some green gray from Liquitex Basics. It makes this kind of beautiful, kind of a little more neutralized oceany turquoise color, which I really like. So those are the colors, and all of the consistencies. This is the number 2 consistency, pretty standard consistency, and it's just the easy formula: 2 parts Floetrol, 1 part paint, and just a little bit of water in all the paints to get them to that slight mound consistency. So I've got a cup here. This is a 7-ounce cup. I've marked it at 5 ounces. You can see it right there. And what we're going to be doing is a dirty cup direct pour, and I'm also going to be spinning the canvas slightly as I apply the paint. So a direct pour is when you're just adding colors right to the canvas. You're just pouring them on the canvas. A dirty direct pour is when you layer a cup, and that's known as a dirty cup. And then you just kind of pour on the paint in a direct pour fashion. So we're kind of doing a very simple technique, but we're going to enhance it with the spinner, and we're going to have our canvas spinning slowly as we apply the paint, and then we're going to spin it out after that and see what happens. So excited to do this technique, and we'll see what we get. So let me move my paints off to the side here, and we'll layer our cup, then we'll put a base coat on, and then we'll do a little bit of spinning. So all right, so 16 by 20, I've got it all set up in my spinner, and I'm using 5 ounces just because I want to have some negative space with this pour. For a 16 by 20, I'd normally use about 13 ounces if I was going to tilt this over all of the edges. So I'm using less than half of that. So 5 ounces is the layered cup, just so I have some negative space, and the paint will expand when we start to spin it. So I want to make sure I can kind of retain some negative space, or at least give myself the best chance possible with some negative space. So I'm going to take some of my white. I'm going to add some of this to a small cup here, just so I can kind of control it, because I'm going to add some white into our layered cup as well. So let's go ahead and layer our cup. I'm going to start with a little white. I'm going to do, this is a simpler layer order that I did Wednesday, and I'm going to go with my green. I'm going to go with, I want a little more white in there, just a small amount. Then I'm going to go with my blue, metallic blue, and some purple, and a little bit of Payne's Gray. And then we're going to just kind of repeat that order. So a little bit more white, get some gold in there, And put a little blue in next time. So I'm just switching that up a little bit, a little more white, a little more green. Then we'll go with, I'm going to put some Payne's Gray on top of the green. So just 2 layers of each color. And then a little purple at the end here. And that's our layered cup. And we're going to just pour this all over our canvas. Now, one thing we could do to make this a little more interesting as we pour it, we can take a stick. So I've just got a stick here. I'm going to dip my stick in and give it one swirl. And this is just going to kind of mix the colors a little bit and get them kind of interacting a little bit more. So I kind of just put my stick in, gave it a twirl, and kind of twirled it up as I pulled it out. So the colors are kind of mixing in there a little bit. It's just going to create a little more interest as we pour, do our direct dirty pour onto our base coat. So I'm going to put that over on the side here. I'm going to move some of these other colors. So it's going to be a pretty quick demo, just because once you get everything set up, it goes relatively fast. So now I'm going to just pour on some white. I'm going to spread this out with my palette knife. You could also spin it out if you really wanted to. I'm going to kind of just use the spinner to help me move my paint. And you don't need a real thick layer. I just want just to cover the canvas and to kind of a nice, just a nice kind of medium layer here, not a real thin layer, because I do want the paint to move when we spin it. So might take a little off actually, and just trying to get it as even as possible. It's not super important to get it really even. You could like kind of tilt this around. It's a little harder with the number 2 consistency to kind of tilt it out to get a really nice even coat. Oops, just pulling off a little bit here. That's looking pretty good. I might give this a little torch. So there we go. It's pretty nice and pretty even. Again, you could give it a little spin if you wanted to even it out a little bit more. I'm not going to do that, I don't think. I think we got it pretty even, but I'm going to give it a little torch here, just to pop some air bubbles. And I'm not worried about the corner or the edges at all. I'm just going to let those go. So those don't need to be covered. And now we're ready to put on do our dirty direct pour. So I'm going to just wiping my knife off, wipe off my stick. And let's see. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm just going to give I'm going to actually switch the camera angle here. And all right, so there we go. So I'm going to give this a nice kind of gentle spin. Whoop, that's a little too aggressive. So just kind of there we go. I don't want a really fast spin. Something rather slow, because I just want to have it's actually a little fast. I just want the canvas moving slightly, just to help get a little more interesting composition as I do a direct pour. So here we go. And I'm just kind of letting the canvas move around, and it's starting to slow down. Oop, I got a little funny there. So that goes pretty fast. I just wanted to get an interesting shape on my canvas. So I'm going to stop it at this stage and maybe run some thin ribbons. Just to add a little interest, something like that. But yeah, I like that a lot. So I'll flip the camera back so you can kind of get a nice top view. But we got an interesting shape. I really wanted interesting shapes. And having the canvas spinning kind of helps you get a little more interesting pores on there. So flip back to the top. And now we're ready. We have some cool cells forming. And those are happening because we gave that little stir and kind of agitated the paint. We created this kind of more interesting ribbon. If you just layer your paints and pour, a lot of the times they'll look more like this. Right here where you have very distinct layers. If you give it a little twirl with your stick, and don't overdo it, but just a little twirl, you can kind of get some very interesting interactions there. So now what we're going to do, I'm just going to move my little barrier thing over. We're going to give this a spin. That's going to stretch the paint, move it around, and we're just going to see what we get. So let's go ahead and give her a spin. And I'm not spinning really fast, just kind of a gentle spin. Just to kind of see how the paint moves. Take my little break here and slow it down. I'm kind of liking that. We got some very cool stuff happening over here. I don't love this big shape right here. It's a little unusual to me, just not a very attractive shape. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to do a little tilting and just see if I can move that shape and make it a little more interesting. There we go. We got a couple of drips, which I kind of like. I'm going to do a little more. I'm going to move it back. So yeah, I like that much better. We created a little more interest in our shapes. So I'm going to do another spin. And I just want to kind of stretch some things out a little bit more. So here we go. Okay, we'll slow her down. And we'll see what we got. All right. Well, I'm thinking. I think this is a pretty cool painting. I really like all the unusual shapes, and I think I might try a little more tilting. I'm gonna. I want to see if I can maybe tilt some of this shape here and pull it down a little bit. So we're kind of doing a combo of tilting and spinning. I just want to get a little more unusual edge on some of these shapes. Okay, I like that. So this was a very round shape, and we kind of added some interest, created a little bit more interest in there. I kind of like this, what's happening down here. We kind of created some interesting effects over here. So I'm going to give it one more spin, kind of a gentle spin, and see what we get. That might be it. That might be all we want to do with this painting. So I'm going to spin it the opposite direction just to see what that does. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to slow that down. All right, so let's take a look at what we've got. I like it quite a bit, actually. So we've got some beautiful lacing in here. We've got some very cool cells. I love the different shapes we were able to achieve. We've got these fine lines from those thin ribbon lines we put on here. I like the negative space, which creates interesting shapes all on its own. We've got a lighter kind of area over here. We've got some darks. I'm really pretty happy with it. So I think I'm going to call this one completed. And I'll just lift it up. Just put it on my spinner, and I'll zoom in a little bit. You can see some of the details, but I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to flip it this way. I kind of like that orientation, but that's a fun direct dirty pour, and we did a lot of cool manipulation with the spinner, did a little bit of tilting, but quite like what's happening in there. All right, so let me zoom in here. So let's check out some of the stuff. So here's that top corner. And I really like this area, this kind of lighter area down here. It's got some interesting cells. I like the thin lines. And it's got some kind of cool lacing there. And then kind of this big central shape I really love. I love those pointy areas. And I love that kind of gradation from that really dark, that's the Payne's gray, into that teal. And then we've got a bunch of cool cells there. We've got this interesting thin white negative space shape. And then I really like this neutralized, more of a gray shape there. And again, some interesting pointy lines. I love those. We have these combination of curves and kind of sharp points. There's that bottom corner. I think that's really cool. So there we go. That's a fun one. I like that one quite a bit. I haven't done a kind of a direct pour like that in quite a while. So I'm pretty happy with that one. All right. So let's see. Do you have any questions about the technique or the colors or anything else? Be happy to answer them. But that is the demo. That goes pretty quickly when you're doing a direct pour like that. So let me flip on back here. All right, so that was fun. Okay, so I'm going to just check and see if any questions came in. And let's see here. No questions yet, so All right. Cinda is asking, she's asking, what is a non-direct pour? Well, a direct pour, and this is my definition, you know, there's lots of names for a lot of these different techniques. My definition of a direct pour is when you're taking colors and pouring them straight on the canvas. And what we did is a dirty direct pour. So we had the layered cup, poured that right on the canvas. So that's a direct pour. Like an example of doing a pour that's non-direct would be like a straight pour. You're pouring, you know, in kind of a thin stream. You know, that's kind of just a standard, you know, a little straight pour, just a standard pour. Ring pour, same type of thing. But the direct pour, you're kind of moving the cup around, and that's how you're kind of getting the paint, you know, to spread over your canvas. So, but that's my definition. That's what I call a direct pour. And there are, you know, many different types of pours. There are flip cup style pours, and those are also dirty cup because you have a layered cup. But then, you know, you move the paint with those by doing the tilting process or spinning process. So, but that's my definition of a direct pour, is when you're pouring the paints right on, directly onto the canvas. This is a dirty cup direct pour. Hope that makes sense. Good question, Cinda. And Lily is asking, is the white a mixture? Yeah, the white is 2 parts Floetrol, 1 part paint, and then some water to get it to the number 2 consistency. So that's kind of the standard consistency. So yeah, every time I ever use any colors, they're always mixed with something. I never use any color kind of straight out of the container. But good question. All right, cool. And we got Barbara is in the house. Great to see you, Barbara. So let's see. All right, no other questions. So I think that is it. It was a pretty quick demo, but a fun one. And give this one a try. I think if you have a spinner, you know, and you don't have to do this exact technique, but you could just give your spinner or spin your canvas slightly and then add your paints. Even with just a regular direct pour, that could be a whole lot of fun too. Or a ribbon pour. You know, this is also technically a ribbon pour, just like big ribbons of color, but that's a fun one. Let's see, Donna has a question, and she's asking, hey Brad, instead of using resin, have you ever used the one-step polyurethane or whatever it's called? I have tried many different top coats, and I've poured on, I don't use resin all that much, but I have tried a one-step poly. It's, let me grab it quick. I'll show you what you could try. It's worked okay for me. It's not, I don't love it. It's not my go-to finish. Let me grab it real quick. Here we go. Just one sec. And, oh wow. Barbara, thank you so much for the awesome little tip. I forget what you call those. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Great to see you, by the way, too. This is a Varathane Ultimate Polyurethane. You can get this at Home Depot. You can get this at Lowe's. It's a water-based product. This one happens to be semi-gloss. It comes in gloss, semi-gloss. I think you can get a matte. It might even come with a super gloss. I'm not sure, but it's an interesting product. You mix it up, but be very careful. Don't so you don't introduce air bubbles. Mix it slowly. But what you do with this, I measure it in a cup that's marked, so I know exactly how much I need for different size canvases. So for 16 by 20, and of course once this is completely dry, I would probably mark a cup with about 13 ounces and get 13 ounces of the material and then pour it on my painting, of course, once it's completely dry. Then you tilt that around and tilt it off of all the edges and off of all of the sides. So it's the consistency kind of our paint. So it's maybe a number 3 consistency. So it's a nice consistency and it tilts pretty easily. You do have to work rather quickly, but if you tilt it all over, then set it down, it kind of self-levels out. So make sure you're working on a level surface, and it dries quite nicely. If you get any air bubbles, you could try, I wouldn't use a torch, I would try maybe a heat gun to take them out, one of those little heat wands. But once it dries, you can get a very nice top coat. Now I've used it several times and it works really well. A couple of times it didn't work that great. And I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe I had it on a little too thick. It kind of created a cloudy effect when it dried. So it might have been humidity. So there's a lot of variables. If you want to try this stuff out, again, it's Varathane Ultimate Poly water base. They also have an oil base. I don't recommend the oil base. You can get some. This is a quart. They make, more. They make smaller pints of it. You could try one of those. Test it out on a small painting that you wouldn't care if it got wrecked. But it can give you a comparable look to resin in that you won't see any brush marks, and it's a really nice, even, kind of nice, flat, even finish. So you can give it a try if you want. I've had success with it. It doesn't mean but you'll have to experiment and play around with it yourself. And I can't stress enough practicing on paintings that you don't care about, don't care about wrecking. So hopefully that helps you, and it shouldn't, you can read this. It doesn't really talk too much about UVs. So again, I wouldn't put it in front of a window where it's getting hit by the sunlight, direct sunlight. It's going to yellow. Anything will yellow in that condition over time. So hope that helps. Give it a shot and see if you like it. So, and Donna is asking, I'm not sure what to use here in Australia. USA seems to have heaps of different types of resins. You could look around in Australia for a water-based polyurethane at your home store or whatever, and see what you have. You might find something comparable in another brand name, and you could give that a try, but make sure it's water-based. So hopefully that helps. And Cinda is also asking, hey Chris, Cinda's also asking, what is my go-to finish? My go-to finish is Liquitex varnish, and I've talked about that. I've got some videos on that. They're in the membership, and I use a foam brush to apply that. It's a tricky application process. You have to work fast, and again, practice that. I like to mix my own sheen. I like to use a gloss, like a 1-part gloss, 1-part satin, so it makes kind of a little shinier satin finish, but it's not so glossy. I don't love the really glossy finishes, but that works really well. It's got UV protection in it. It's a really high quality, professional art finish, so that's what it's designed for. And you should probably be able to find that in Australia, I would think. Liquitex Liquitex varnish. And do I have any on hand? Yeah, that's what it is. But it works really well. You can check out the website, the membership, and you should be able to see some varnishing videos in there. So, but that's my go-to. All right. And good questions though, Cinda. And Lily is asking, hey Brad, I did your clear coat gel mix on a painting and never poured over it. It looks like varnish. Your clear coat gel mix. Oh yeah, when you mix up just like a Floetrol and like you can do that too if you want. You could do a Floetrol and like a golden soft body gel and mix that together, and that's like a paint basically, and it just doesn't have any color in it, and you can pour that on, tilt that around, and that will dry, and that will look good too. The only problem with that is there's not a lot of UV protection in that particular way of putting on a finish, but it gives you a very nice top coat. So great tip, Lily. And Chris is saying that she uses Mod Podge Gloss Luster. That's over in Australia, so you might want to check that out, Cinda. And I haven't used a lot of Mod Podge. I've tried it. I didn't really love it, but there's a lot of different types out there. So that's a great tip. Thanks so much, Chris. And and then Donna mentioned, and Chris is in Australia too. So fantastic. And Chris also mentioned she gets it at Spotlight, wherever that might be. So awesome. Thanks so much for all the tips. And Donna says, she's used a Jo Sonia varnish, which works pretty well too. Yeah, that's just a different type of a art varnish. And yeah, you can get that, could work too. I like the Liquitex, mostly because it's available here, but it's a high quality finish. When I apply it relatively thickly with my foam brush, and 2 coats of that, and gives it almost a resin look. So the way I put it on. So I really like using the Liquitex. It is a little tricky though. So I'm always like holding my breath when I use that. And then Barbara also mentioned she uses the Liquitex too. So yeah, it's a great product. So, all right. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much everybody and for joining me. And let's take one final look at the painting. And I'll use my side camera here and give it a little turn. Here's what we came out with. Turned out pretty cool. Pretty happy with that. So pretty awesome. And then thanks again, Barbara, for the awesome tip. That is fantastic. I really appreciate that so very much. All right. Okay, everyone. So thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a great weekend. Take care. I will see you next week. We'll do another Friday demo. And to all my members, I'll see you on Wednesday. So take care, everyone. I'll talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.